Hi folks, how are you doing? There we go with yet another world champion, as one of the great predecessors Magnus Carlsen has had in the world championship throne as world champions. Now it is the turn of Vasily Smyslov, yet another of Russian world champions of chess. He was world champion in the 1950s, a really solid and strong player. Loved end games. Had a very nice positional sense of the game. Well, he died yet a couple of years ago in 2010, and during his long life he was very successful in team tournaments, and both in team and individual tournaments. And he's remembered for his world championship matches with Botvinnik. They had 3 world championship matches in the 50s. At the first one, the world champion Botvinnik drew the match and held his title. In the second one, Smyslov won and was the new world champion. And in the rematch, Botvinnik once again won the world championship title back. Smyslov was, apart from being an excellent chess player, he was a baritone singer, an opera singer, and was quite successful and good in that too. I think there's a famous picture or video or whatever of him singing and Mark Taimanov, another Soviet chess player, chess grandmaster, playing the piano. So anyway, let's go with the game. We're gonna see a game played between Smyslov and Botvinnik in one of their world championship matches. The game was played in 1954 in Moscow. Smyslov had white pieces. He plays e4. And Botvinnik replies with the French opening. Main line, we go into the whenever line, bishop b4. Now Botvinnik had a very wide opening repertoire, as both as white and black. And as he was a true scientist in the openings, he used to investigate a lot, he used to know lots of theory. The French was one of his main weapons against e4, though he also played a lot the Caro-Kann and some Sicilian lines with success. Smyslov goes for the main line, c5, a3, now bishop a5. Not the most common move. The most common move is to take, and then, we'll continue black will continue probably with knight e7 or queen a5, lots of moves. But this is bishop e5, a less played move, but also very theoretical. Years later, this was played in 1954. Some years later, this would be called the Armenian variation, thanks to the efforts of the GMs Laputian and Vaganian from Armenia, who played this move tons of times with lots of success. Now b4 was played, c takes d4, and now queen g4. Not the only move here. Now before taking here, I mean, instead of queen g4, we got also knight b5, another main line, following like bishop c7 to avoid the check on d6, which wouldn't be that great at this point. Now f4, defending the pawn, knight e7, knight f3, bishop d7, and the knight goes back to d4, taking the pawn. And this is playable position, very theoretical as well, and with more or less equal chances for both players, I think. But instead, Smyslov went for this direct queen g4, very typical move in this kind of whenever French positions, when the f8 bishop is out there here attacking the knight, creating problems, and this g7 pawn is kind of hanging, so the queen lots of times takes advantage of that and goes ahead to attack this g7 pawn. Now black has several ways to defend it depending on the position. g6 is one of them. Sometimes when the bishop is still on b4, it can go back. Bishop f8 is possible, and sometimes, as we will see in this game, black just lets white to take on g7 and also taking on a7, creating a very complicated and sharp game. Now knight e7, this is the case in this game, and when, instead white could have taken on g7, and probably something like rook g8 would have followed with a typical maneuver in the French. But b takes, if f5, a5 was played here, and after d takes c3, queen takes g7. Now rook takes g8, rook g8, and queen takes h7. This is more or less a typical situation for the French, except for these pawns, which probably are not that normal to be here, that scattered. But okay, now knight d7. A little bit strange looking move, because the knight is going to make some strange move to, well, situate in more or less complicated places. Something more accurate seems to be to put the knight on c6, to put the bishop on d7 and try to castle long or something. But okay, this is an idea what Winnick probably had. Something like knight f3 normal. Now he went with the knight to f8, just chasing the queen back from there with the knight on f8. Now the queen goes back to d3 and the queen takes on a5. At this point, well, black has a better pawn structure. White has the bishop pair, but the point is that white has also this h pawn, which is already a passed pawn. It cannot be stopped by any other pawns, and it goes forward. h4. This is going to be one of the main advantages white has in this position. Bishop d7, developing pieces. Bishop g5, a cool move, just pointing out that black cannot castle long that easily, because this knight would be hanging, and also controlling dark squares very well, as black does not have any dark squared bishop on the board. Now rook c8, black cannot castle, so the rook must play. It goes to c8. Knight goes to d4, centralizing. Now knight f5, fighting for central squares. Both knights are trying to fight for really good outposts in the center of the board. Rook b1, attacking the pawn on b7, putting the rook on an open file. Now rook c4, just attacking the knight on d4 with both the rook and the queen, and the rook and the knight. Sorry, the knight takes on f5, he takes f5, and now the rook takes on b7. At this point, rook e4 check was played, and well, this is already a mistake, because white has a forcing continuation in this line, which Smyslov is going to execute perfectly. It involves a queen, temporarily at least, queen sacrifice, taking on e4, and it doesn't really matter with which pawn that is going to black to recapture, because this queen sacrifice is going to work anyway, thanks to the very vulnerable position of this black king on e8. Now what Winnick took with the d pawn, rook b8 check, bishop c8, and bishop b8 check. Note that taking the bishop now is not good, because after king d8 check, white has suddenly run out of check, and there is no clear way to continue with the attack. Instead, bishop b5 check on the 21st move is forcing black to take on b5 to give back the queen, because otherwise this is going to lead to checkmate. So the queen is forced to take on b5, the rook takes back, and now white is up material. This passed pawn is going to be important, and he's up the exchange as well, apart from this pawn. So knight e6, trying to activate pieces. Bishop f6, good move, just controlling dark squares and avoiding the exchange of this bishop. Rook h3 is a move, nice move suggested by my engine, which seems to be terribly strong. Now, if black takes on g5, which seems to be his first intention, rook takes c3 is threatening checkmate in one move, taking the bishop on c8, king e7. Now rook b8, and the bishop is going to fall. And the knight goes back, the rook takes, and white is up an exchange in 2 pawns, and should be winning very easily. But instead, okay, bishop f6 just keeps the advantage. It isn't a bad move at all. Rook takes g2, but the point is, once again, that this pawn is passed and is going to decide the game. It goes forward, h5, bishop a6, but h6. Black can easily take on b5, but this pawn on h6 is not going to be stopped and is going to queen, winning the game easily. Black resigned, there is no way to stop the pawn, and well, a very short game. Not really usual to see this kind of games in World Championship matches. in which Smyslov outplayed the experienced and the strong Botvinnik in just 25 moves. And okay, this was all for today. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you in next videos.